this is Stephanie Bourbon. Welcome back to my channel. I'm super excited that you are here. Today I am interviewing Jess Keating. She is an author and speaker. She has a new course called the Epic Authors Academy, and it's super amazing. It's for writers and illustrators who work in Kidlit, who want to have a better understanding of themselves so they can move their careers and their lives forward. And from what I hear, it is amazing. This is the second run of the course, and I have lots of friends and colleagues who took it this summer, and they are raving about it. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the interview. Welcome. I'm super excited to talk to you. I will let you introduce yourself. This is Jess, for everybody who doesn't know her, but go ahead and introduce yourself and just give us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then we'll get into it.
Absolutely. So thank you very much for having me, Steph. My name is Jess Keating, and I am a children's book author, scientist, particularly a zoologist, illustrator, and success coach. So I have a lot of tools in the toolkit that I like to bring to help fellow creatives not only make their work with confidence, but also share it and sell it and make money with confidence and feel really capable and happy doing that. So for the past, I would say, oh my gosh, 10, 15 years, I've been doing children's books like on their own, like on its own. I've been doing, I started writing novels, and then because of my background in science and zoology, I expanded to include nonfiction books. I'm sure we'll have a link somewhere that you can check all this stuff out.
Yes.
And then perfect. And then I got into doing picture books. And then from that point on, I did that for a long time. And as I progressed in my author career, I started to expand a little bit more and more each year. And I opened up into speaking events, and I found I really love that. When I was younger, I was a singer. So I love being on a stage, even though I'm a huge introvert. I love the idea of having people, as a captive audience, like lock the doors. You can't get away from me. I love being able to say what's important to me and teach people. It can't help it. It's in my blood. And then in the past year or two, actually post kind of COVID stuff, COVID gave me an opportunity to, as it did with many people, reassess what I was doing. And I was in a situation where that last December, before everything kind of hit, I was on a plane 5 or 6 times in a month, and like bouncing all over the place. And I got very sick in January, which was likely, looking back now, where we can recognize what that was.
Yeah, I think I had it too.
Yeah, like it was one of those. Yeah, I survived. It was actually really a horrible sickness, but I was fine. I survived. And from that point, I was able to, with everything kind of grounded, do a really big reassessment of my career.
That's awesome.
And I noticed, like, again, I'm not somebody who would say like, oh, there's always a silver lining. There is, but like, I don't like putting that on people. Like it just doesn't feel genuine to me. But in my case, it was definitely an opportunity to ask myself, like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And why does it feel a certain way? And what happened was, I realized, this was 2 or 3 years, two years. I was feeling it before this, but COVID shutdown gave me a chance to really internalize it. I realized that I was operating in an environment that I found to be quite toxic and disempowering. And I know this resonates with you, Steph, with your own story. So the funny thing about being a children's book author is, it's a wonderful job, but it is, because it's so inherently creative, and because we are melding the ideas of creativity and flow and energy with the structure of a very difficult business. That's what happens. We merge those two things together. It can be really disempowering. Yeah. And I realized, like, I have no interest in living my life from a state of, many of the messages that I still hear now, that I work with all the time in people, is, oh, well, nothing you do can move the needle on your career. Or, you might as well just hope for the best in this career. And I was like, wait a minute, no. Like, authors and that's a very common, like, if you have children's book authors right now, they will definitely recognize, like, nothing you do will move the needle on the marketing. It's up to your publisher to blah, blah, blah. And I recognized like that just doesn't logically sit with me, because marketing is an entity. Like you can't just say, well, marketing works in every field, but this one, right?
Yeah,
so I
exactly.
recognized logically, my science brain was like, well, that's not true. But even emotionally and kind of spiritually, for lack of a better word, I knew that sitting in that place was really, really toxic.
It
So
is. It's really
it was
toxic.
so it's so toxic, and I hate to see it, because creatives, I believe, are the change makers. You know, I think that creatives are the ones with the ideas that will move society forward.
Absolutely.
And whether or not, like, whether you're talking children's books or, you know, huge life-changing whatever, it really doesn't matter. But even on a personal level, I don't know a single creative who says like, I want to do this because it's the easy road. Like, that's not why they're doing it. They're doing it because they feel this call.
Exactly.
So a couple years ago, I decided to take a bit of a step back, and I gave myself the freedom to kind of like quit for a hot little minute there. I kind of knew I was going to come back anyway. But what I realized I wanted to do was create something for the people like me who were very, very science minded. Like, I don't do anything if there's not evidence to back it up, because I just figure, right? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. But at the same time, I'm also very spiritually inclined, not religious, but very spiritually inclined. And there are things that I have experienced in my own life that I know if you just take everything at face value, scientifically, logically, analytically, you're going to miss out on a lot. So what I wanted to do was create a transformation for fellow creatives that would allow them to step away from that feeling of disempowerment. And I noodled on it for a long time. And I mean, we have all the usual like imposter syndrome and, oh, what will people think, and all this stuff. And I found that the more I did my own healing through these strategies that I teach in the course that I was building, the more I was able to kind of just shed those layers of myself and really not like give a damn what people think, because I know now the right people will be magnetized to what I make.
Absolutely.
So I created Epic Authors Academy, and I ran the first run of that. That was through July and August. And it absolutely, I had like, I'm a realist, but I had very, very high hopes, because I knew what I was doing was something really different. Like, there's nothing like this in our industry. It is, there just isn't. And like, I am really happy. I talk about this in some other places. Like, I looked into human design. I don't know if do you follow human design at all?
No.
So human design, it's kind of like astrology on steroids.
Okay.
And I mean, you can look at it however you will. Like, again, I'm a scientist. I recognize like it's very woo, but as a catalyst to look at yourself and be like, does this resonate or not? For me, my human design type is a manifester. And learning that meant that I was able to accept that my job is to be first sometimes. Like, my job is to blaze a trail, and that can often feel kind of scary. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying not everybody's a trailblazer in their own way, but like my particular creativity energy type is to just do what I want to do and not really care what other people are doing.
I think I'm the same way, although I've never done that.
You should totally, you have to look it up. Like when we're done here, like look it up and let me know your type.
I will.
But it was stuff like that, like learning to be okay with who I was and presenting it how I wanted to present it. That process of launching and selling that course was healing in and of itself. And the neat thing was I was able to then see the ramifications of this transformation in, you know, like 100 other authors who came to me feeling like, I mean, the typical things you would expect, you know, like imposter syndrome. A lot of people that are trying to start a creative career in writing, they're kind of battling the creative part with, like I said, the business. Like, how do I show up online? How on earth do I build an audience so that I can market a book whenever I have one? And you just feel lost. And there's a lot of guidance out there, you know, like stuff like, oh, post on Instagram at this time, or I don't know, build up your Twitter following by just like putting out things that matter to you. And I'm like, that's garbage. Like if it's not aligned strategically, but also with your authentic creative soul, what's the point? Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So what I did was I made a program in Epic Authors Academy. I take people through what I call the 3 souls of success. So the first soul is your inner soul. And that is the stuff that, like, now I don't do coaching one-to-one with anybody until they've worked on this stuff a little bit with me, because I know it just won't stick. You know what I can give you all the strategy in the world, but if you're afraid to show up as yourself, you'll sabotage it and you'll be like, oh, it didn't work. So the inner soul work is all of the, like, connecting with your intuition. You know, that's the first thing we do. Is everybody thinks they have a good connection to their intuition until I show them scientifically how we lose those connections.
Yeah.
And then they're like, and then I give them an activation that allows them to build that connection again. And it's stuff like success blocks. You know, we've talked about this before too, I think, where we have this idea of success as creatives, but we often don't include ourselves in that vision. Like we picture like Diane Keaton on the beach house, right? Like in the beach house.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
all
like,
the time.
And that's great. But if your version of success doesn't include you, you won't get there. Right. Exactly. And if you think, like, if you had a family growing up that was like, oh, you know, your creative aunt, like your aunt is trying to make a living with her paintings. And like that silly aunt, if that's the message that you're getting about creative living,
my entire life.
Exactly. Like, and if we don't intentionally dig through all those subconscious blocks, all the work in the world won't matter.
Exactly.
And this was the stuff that I was seeing reflect. Like, this is why I go online to my like kidlit Twitter feeds and I see literal memes about how shitty this job is.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm waiting again. It's like, no, you're not. Waiting is not a word that's in my vocabulary. Like, when you get through Epic Authors Academy, there's no such thing as waiting. You're watching. You're watching for evidence. You know, so the inner soul is all about that. It's about getting rid of those subconscious, really deep soul stories that we don't even know we're there. And somebody mentioned this to me. They said, you're kind of like spiritual Windex, where like everybody looks, I know, I love it.
I love it.
Everybody looks in a mirror and your own like stories that you tell yourself and your soul gunk, it's all over the mirror, right? So I basically give you a little paper towel and give you the tools to wipe that stuff away. And then when you see who you actually are, that's where the power comes in.
Well, that's what's so amazing. That's what I'm going to interrupt for a second, because like that's what drew me to you when you were posting about it and stuff, because there's a lot of us that are writers or artists or both, or have courses, because I have courses too. And one of mine is, it's not out yet, but I have like a career course that I was calling it Story Concierge, but it's nothing like yours. And I saw yours and I'm like, oh, is she doing something like mine? And I was looking at it, I'm like, this is so cool. And then when I found out you were a scientist, because my sister is a scientist and I love her. She might be watching this video, so I mean her no disrespect, but she teaches science. Her brain works completely different than mine, because I've always just been like, go with my gut and do what, you know, I'm a stereotypical Pisces who is working as a creative. And it's like, whatever, I want to do this, so I'm going to do it. And I never thought about how hard it was. Although when I was in second grade, my mom said, you want to be an actress, you're always going to be broke. This coming from a fine artist, but I was like, okay, whatever, mom. And it went into my head for so long that you're never going to make money. You're never going to be okay. And then, you know, I have times where I was making tons of money in animation and then it would crash. And then I get TV writing job and I was back up and then it would crash. And
feast and famine. Yeah.
Feast and famine. And then I started coaching people. And it's funny because I will send people to you like crazy, because I feel like what you're teaching is so important, because you can tell people to be positive, because I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself.
But that's not enough.
It's not enough, because if you have that core thing, it's so funny, because I was telling my husband that we were going to do this interview today last night, and we were just sort of talking about things, because I'm doing more and more book coaching too. And I all of a sudden I'm back into one-on-one coaching, but I do like it. And I'm like, I just need to hit this level. And I'm like, God, what if I do hit that level? All of a sudden I realized that I was actually afraid of that weird success that I've been pushing for and working for all these years, that it is a block, because in your head, you're not supposed to be doing well.
And it's a big block, you know, and it's one of those things that, like, this is why this inner soul work is, nothing else matters without it. Nothing you will do, because we are all afraid of success.
Yes.
Every one of us. And it's not just like I was told that, you know, you can't be successful as an actor, whatever. It's because our physiology is built to keep us safe. Yes. And success by definition is a change, a huge change, to go from like sitting in a room to living your dream life in a mansion with responsibility, with, paying $1 million in taxes, reaching all these thousands of people that you want to be reaching through your work. That success is such a threat to your physical body.
It's terrifying.
That your subconscious in your brain will literally send you in the opposite direction. And one of the things I like to tell my EPIC students is like, your body and even your energetic soul, you can kind of think of it like that, it will prefer a very familiar crappy place to an unfamiliar dream life. And if you don't consciously work away at intentionally building those bridges of safety and expansion, it just won't work, because your body is trying to protect you. And again, this is why, like you said, like be positive. Being positive is great, but there is also a lot to be said for recognizing that the wounds that we have, the traumas that we've had, big T or little t traumas, like whatever on the scale it is, and the shadows that we have, those are actually the keys to finding your success. 100%. It's not even like a detour. It is the doorway, because it's through healing those that you find that safety in expansion.
That's so amazing, because I feel like you don't even realize it, because whenever I've decided I was going to do something, but I never thought about it, that it was going to be hard. It was just like, oh, I'm going to go work at Disney now. I need money.
Yep.
I'm sick of being a waitress, even though I loved waiting tables, but that was my mom, like, you'll be a waitress forever. And I was like, okay, I'll just go draw for Disney. I never thought for a second that it was hard. I never thought that sounds arrogant, but I never thought that I couldn't do it. There was no doubt. And I sailed right in there. But with other things that are more important,
it's there.
Like novel writing and stuff, it's like I get so far, but not yet. And it is there. Even when I'm like, no, I totally thought this novel was perfect and it should have sold. And but I know it's there. And it's weird, because being in that Facebook group of yours, your free one, and like listening and seeing, like I have a lot of friends and colleagues who went through your course this summer. It's like, she is really onto something, which is why I wanted to interview you. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but like,
no, absolutely.
Because I think it's something that people don't think about that they need. I think
it is.
As a creative, you're like, I need to learn craft. I need to learn how to draw. I need to learn how to write. And I teach craft. So I'm all about
craft is wonderful. But there are enough people teaching craft for me. Like I can teach craft, but you do a lovely job. I don't need to do that, right? Like I find that one of my students said that Epic Authors Academy is the course that will save you money, because you can start to recognize which craft course you need.
Yeah,
like one of the types of there are many types of imposter syndrome, and one of them is known as the expert, which is the person who is always waking up and saying, "I just need one more course. I need one more. I want to take this class though before I become who I am. Just one more little thing." And that is a huge self-sabotage. That is a subconscious self-sabotage.
And I was one of those people. I was like the course, the craft person. And I was at all the conferences and I was like, and I'll take this workshop and this one. And I was like, I was not getting anything done.
Because you're trying to fill the tank with external stuff. And it's you. And like, exactly. And people always say, one thing that always bugs me is like, people will say, well, the answers are in you, right? And that is objectively true. That is true. Your intuition does have what you need. But my question was like, where the hell are these answers? How can I get in touch with them? How can I do this? And what I do is I help people create that map of themselves so they can find those answers. Like I don't want people to stop taking craft courses. I want them to stop wasting their time and stop self-sabotaging. So now, like when you go through EAA, if you get a ding in your intuition that's like, I should take this craft course, you can do it knowing, yes, this is in alignment with me. This is what I actually need. I will gain something from this, rather than I'm trying to fill this void of me being good enough for this gig with this other person's genius. Like you have enough genius on your own. You are meant to improve it and kind of polish it with the help of other people. So that is, it's this whole, we keep looking outside of ourselves for what we need.
Exactly.
That's funny. All it is.
When I started my story concierge thing, God, back in 2008, it's because there was so many TV writers coming to me and like, oh, and I do drama and I do this. And they were in all the wrong courses because you wanted to network and you wanted to show up. And it's like, look, if you write drama and you're in Chuck Lorre's class, who's a comedy guy, you're not getting your drama produced. You understand that you're just wasting time and money. So I developed that to help people tour guide, because I worked at the Cheesecake Factory, and I swear to God, you could come in and there's a 400 things on the menu. And so I would say, well, what are you in the mood for? It was literally part of our training to tour guide people through that menu. Otherwise you'd be
That's a big menu. I've seen those menus.
Right? But it gave me, who knew the 3 years at the Cheesecake Factory, but it gave me skills that I didn't realize, because now that's what I do is I tour guide people through. I get on calls with people all the time and I'm like, you don't need a writing coach. Like, I'd love to take your money. You don't need a coach.
Exactly. You don't need it. And
you don't need it. And
people
you have this in yourself.
Don't recognize. And well, so that's the thing. Once we finish, this is a perfect segue. Once we finish that inner soul work, the second soul that I work on with people is what I call the outer soul, which is merging. Like, how on earth do I merge all of the things in me that matter to some version of me that can be expressed outwardly? In other words, marketing. Right? Like, marketing is just telling people what you're about, giving free information about who you are and showing what matters to you. But you can't do that if you don't have a sense of your own authority.
Yes.
Right. And to me, building a platform is all about two things. It's about elevation and it's about separation. It's not that you're better than other people. I'm not saying it on that context. I'm saying of the thing that you are for, you're the one to go to. Like, people know what I'm about because I have intentionally showed them, here's what I am good at. Here's where I excel. And this is where you can find me if you need X, Y, Z.
Yes.
Right. And then that inherently separates you. Because one of the things that I hear so many times, like, and I'm not negating, like, the role of social media is huge in an author's life. Absolutely. It doesn't need to be, but like, for the most part, we want to be, you want to be online, you want to be making an effort. But what I would see is people that were like, well, I don't know what to say, because I have nothing to say. They'll be like, oh, I'm just a mom, or I'm just a whatever. And I'm like, you must hear that all the time. Like, there's nothing special about me. Like, there absolutely is. You're a freaking writer. Like, you have so much.
I blogged about this yesterday, like, about
there you go. Like,
it's
all there, but you need to use it with strategy.
Yes.
So in the 2 weeks that we deal with outer soul stuff, the first week is me taking people through what I call magnetic marketing shifts in souls, which is this process of, like, how do you create your outer soul in a way that resonates, build your audience for you, build your brand for you in a way that's not like, you know what I mean? Like, even the word brand, people are like, ugh. Like, I'm not a business person. Like, you actually are. Like it or not, you have every tool that a creative entrepreneur has, if not more, because you're a writer or you're a creative. Like, that's incredible. And then the second half is what I call my, like, conscious creativity model, which is where you can put out into the world whatever you want. You don't have to be limited and say, like, okay, I'm going to be the person who's known for being smart about animals. Like, I'm a zoologist. Part of my authentic outer soul is animal stuff because I have a lot of books about them. Right. Yeah. But you don't have to be limited to that. But what I do is I give, like, a compass framework of ways that you can recognize what is the goal of this thing that I'm putting out here now. Like, is it just to build my audience? Is it to be, elevate myself a little bit? Is to kind of show off my separation in this area, so that whenever you're putting anything out there, you can almost use it as, like, kind of a guide, like a bit of a compass point, so that you don't feel lost. And again, even if you are just a mom, which that's a ridiculous thing to think, but there are people who think that, like, what kind of a mom are you, Jenny? Like, that would be a question I would ask. Like, what are you for? Yeah. And the one thing that is always true in every creative that I work with is that the things that they create are directly related to the things that they are for on a soul level. Like, I talk about empowering women. I talk about, saving the planet. I talk about creativity, curiosity, discovery, exploration. You see that everywhere in what I post. So one of my secrets is, like, when I'm talking about how to market a book, I always tell my ladies, like, it's not about the book. Like, your best story to sell your story of the book is your story as a human. Yeah. And the best thing about that is you don't always have to be like, buy my book, because any book that comes out, people know what they're getting with me. I'm not suddenly going to write, like, the dinosaur erotica. I mean, I'm sure there's money there, but there was a hot little, do you remember that when that was a thing? Like, dinosaur erotica was a thing.
That's hilarious.
This industry. And for a minute I was like, maybe I can, and I was like, no,
I got a huge tax bill yesterday, and I thought, because I've been a screenwriter too. And I thought, oh, maybe I should go write some porn. I don't watch porn, but I'm like, maybe I should go write some porn.
Good money.
Really well. It's easy to do. You don't have to put your name. I mean, how hard is it, right?
And there's always an audience.
There's always an audience, but I'm like, I have no interest in that.
Exactly. It's not what you're for.
It's not who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, there's people that were in the course of summer that I've seen the transformation in them.
I know, it is so beautiful. So this is the thing, like we are just getting out of this. And one of the decisions that I made, this was the first time I ran it. Like I ran it with however many people, like almost 100 people.
That's amazing.
And it was incredible. It went beyond my hopes and dreams and expectations. Yeah. And what I was planning on doing was having people go through the 8 weeks with me and then like, all right, off you go. Like, good luck, like have fun with this. But the wins just keep coming in the group, in the mastermind. So I was like, oh my God, like I can't close this down. So what I'm doing now is for the next launch, like we're doing this on a Tuesday. Next week, we'll be starting week 1. And what I'm doing now is instead of starting a new group, people are going to be brought into this already existing mastermind. So they have all these different levels, of joining like in at different times and stuff. So it's like that. It's such I'm really, really glad that I kind of made that, because again, you have ideas about it's going to go like this. Oh, yeah. But every day there are wins. One girl, real sweetheart, she started off being like, I'm a little bit like, I've been doing this for a while. Like she'd been an author for a while, published for a lot, many times, but she was like, I'm just feeling like I don't know where to go from here. I'm feeling kind of like weakened by it all. And she put a post up yesterday being like, I think that I collapsed time with your instructions. And I was like, yes, like that is what you want. And like we say these phrases, right? Like quantum leap, collapsing time. Like there is a scientific way to step into those things. Yeah, there is. And it's like, it's not all about the woo. I am here for the woo. Like I am 100% here for woo, because there is a lot of science underneath it that we just don't have articulated properly. Yeah. And unfortunately, a bit of a beef that I have is that in the manifestation crowd, for lack of a better term, they don't have a handle on the science. So they come up with a bunch of like fake stuff. And I'm like, no, like there actually is a science here, man. Like, just let me show you some papers, right? Yeah. But I get it. Like that is just me being like a control freaky scientist. I get it. Yeah. Right. Just like, I can't remove that part of myself, but seeing these amazing transformations still ongoing. Like one person, they said, I made the decision after a long time to part ways with my agent. Right. And on its surface, you're like, that's awful. That's really hard. That's really terrible. But what helped her was right? Like the intuition work that we did. She's like, I knew that I was staying for the wrong reasons. Yes. And like, that's the power. Like she will find another better suited, like that's all kind of like the fluff and stuff. Yeah. But to have that connection and be confident it is so counter to what we normally see in this industry. Yes. And I'm not saying people are not confident. I think we try to put up the tough skin of it all, because we say like, oh, you got to have a tough skin to be a writer. Like, or you can just take on the opinion that like what you do has a life of its own and your job is to just kind of usher it into the world. Right now you've probably heard like there's all these supply chain problems with books coming in right now. And I've had so many DMs from people who are just like positively freaking out. And meanwhile, I'm like, well, can I control that? No. So what can I control? Like there's a ton of stuff I can do, ton of stuff. And it's kind of being able to discern that and truly understand that everything that's happening for you is happening for your best interest. Mm-hmm. And that is not me being some Pollyanna, because I know shit things happen. Yeah. It is better business sense to be an optimist. Not because it's objectively great out there, but because you literally prime a part of your brain to look for answers and to look for solutions and opportunities. That's the key. I've never heard of it that way, but that's, like I said, that's exactly it. It's like whenever I've thought I was going to do something and I never put doubt in my head, it was easy to achieve. I found a way. It was like, I need to do these steps. And then when the doubt, I always tell people different personalities, but I'm like, if I think about stuff too much, that's when I start to ruin it, whether it's drawing, or writing, or my business, which the past 2 years, it's like ever since I
I was on Kajabi. Now I'm on Zenler. They're course platforms for
Mhm.
those that don't know who are listening or watching. But I put down the money for it. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, now it has to be perfect. But when I'm like
Yeah.
walking around my living room talking about my courses, or I'm at a conference and I'm like, oh, and I have this course and this is what I do. People are like, that sounds amazing. Where can I sign up? And then I freeze sometimes
Yes,
because of my
because it's
head.
scary, right? You've got
It's
all
scary.
these obstacles.
And it's the
It's
same thing
all
with
those
writing.
things.
This
Yep.
book has to be perfect.
So that's the thing. Like I
Nothing.
noticed
Yeah.
when I was putting this together, I was like, so we as creatives, and particularly like authors, artists, illustrators, we have another level that many other creative entrepreneurs don't have in terms of where sabotage can happen. So like we have to be able to, it kind of happens on 4 levels. We need to be able to make the thing, right? Like whatever it is, you need to be connected enough to make the book you want to make the course, make the whatever.
Yeah.
Then you need to have, so you need to be tapped in for that. You need to have the confidence to make the thing and the intuitive connection, all the assets you need to do it. But then you need the confidence and lack of self-sabotage to like share the thing.
Yes.
And that's the first level. So in the case of an author, it would be sending it out to an agent or a critique partner without that voice being like, you're an idiot, they're going to laugh at you. What if you have a typo? What, like, any agent who's going to drop you for a typo is not an agent you need. Like that, put that shit out of your mind. But like that is something that comes up a lot.
All the time. Yeah.
And then once you have that, once you've got, okay, you broke through that self-sabotage, you've given it to somebody. Let's say you get great news, the thing sells. Now you need to have the ability to promote that thing.
Yep.
And how many times have you heard this, Stephanie? I know you've heard this. Oh, I don't want to be a pain or shameful self-promotion, but blah, 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 blah. Here's my book. And it's like, oh my God, honey, like your book is not a book. Your book is a solution to somebody's problem.
Yes.
Right now, there is somebody who is dying to read your book for whatever reason, whether they have it, if it's a kid's book, their kid won't sleep at night. This is the answer to their prayers. Mm-hmm. If it's a book for adults, like they could be sitting in a hospital room right now, waiting for something, and they need a way to escape reality.
Yes.
That's what your romance novel does.
Yeah.
Like
that's
you
why
are
I'm writing
not
Hallmark type. Yeah.
Exactly. Like
reality.
You get that. And like, it is just as worthy as the person out there saving, cancer patients. Like we need all of these things. We need we all play a role. Like as a zoologist, I spent decades learning about how in ecology, we have this phrase, like it all depends, right? Everything depends on everything else. And we all have key creative roles to play. Roles to play.
Yeah.
So don't couch it anymore. Like, don't be afraid to promote the thing. And then the last stage, which is one that, again, I've never seen it spoken about in a craft class. I've never seen it spoken about. Well, and there's no other course like this now.
I've never seen a course like yours.
And I'm really proud of it. Like there is nothing like it. And I can say like some people
there's
say that
coaching. I have a friend who her name is Stephanie too. And she teaches this, like, love yourself. And the course is amazing. When I went through a hard time with my now husband, I took her course, and it just helped me sort of stand on my own. It's helped me center, but it's not like yours, and it's not geared towards this. So like yours is
it's basically life coaching for creatives, but with a lot more sciencey. I mean, I go heavy into the woo too. Like there's a lot of shamanic elements to it that all kind of work their magic. Let's say once we get it out there, we've got the thing published, and we get over the internal, hurdles to self-promotion and all that stuff. Great. But then we dip into this other part of our career. Like I said, we never talk about, it's this idea of having creative seasons, right? Like you will always have seasons where you are not writing. And that's okay. You will always have seasons where you need to pull back a little bit. And like I had to do via like force, when I was forced to reassess. Yeah. You don't want the world to force you into a reassessment, because it will typically come in the form of an accident or something crappy. Really. Like if you don't allow that fallow period to happen, like flowers do not bloom all the time in nature. Animals know how to rest. We are just animals. And I know, like, we like to think that we're special. We have creative, capabilities. Sure, we have a special role in our world, like everything else. But if we try to remove ourselves from those core cyclical patterns of like what goes on in the world, just in nature, what happens then? We get burnt out. We get
that's
overwhelmed.
exactly it.
We get resentful. Like that is one of the key signs. Like if anybody's watching this or listening to this and resentment comes into their day a lot and they're looking at like, oh, well, Stephanie got a book deal on this, or, oh, it must be nice to sit. Like I trigger a lot of people because I talk about money a lot. If you are thinking like, oh, well, of course she can say that because she's making this much money, that resentment is a sign that you are looking for something outside of yourself that you're not finding, and you need to find it inside.
Yes.
That's what
I hear
resentment
that too. Yeah.
Like you must hear it all the time because you work with so many authors and stuff. Like it is that idea that we need to learn to tune into the appropriate energies at different times in our creative season. So I take people through masculine and feminine energy. I take them through the energetics of success and abundance. Because again, as we said at the top, like abundance, the idea of having more than enough of anything, money, creativity, ideas, help, promoting, all of these things, that is a very scary thing.
Oh, it is.
And even in terms of, because it's an excess. And what do we teach people about excess? Oh, it's greedy to want more. We shouldn't be overweight because that's an excess. Like even those little messages, they seep into our whole souls, and we don't allow ourselves to really sit back and say, okay, I don't care what season the rest of the world is in. I'm in this season.
Exactly. And, I think it's coming at such a good time because COVID, what I noticed last year, so many people kept saying to me like, well, how are you doing this right now? There's all this bad stuff going out in the world. And how are you putting out courses? And I'm like, okay, people are home right now too. So they need something to funnel. But I am not a doctor, and I am not whatever. I can't solve those problems. So this is what I can do now. And if you want to write now, don't feel guilty about it because somebody work.
And that's the thing. Like one of the things that I noticed, and I have like very stern like lectures about this in Epic Authors Academy. It is this idea of like socialized misery.
Yes.
Where, like I said, we come up with memes, or like we are afraid of shining too brightly because it might trigger people.
Yes.
And I've gotten over that. Like that is truly deep healing work. We go back I think it's in the week 4 where I'm working on visibility stuff. Like we all have visibility fears. Yes. And before doing this work, I would have sold this course being 99% leaning into the science, because I was afraid in my own visibility fear way. What if I am seen as some sort of a kook by talking about the spiritual element? Right? Like I was afraid to do that. But then through that process of healing, I'm like, whatever, baby. Like if you're in tune with me, you like people listening who are in tune will just get it. Exactly. That resonance, that tuning fork will just go off and they'll be like, oh, this is for me. And that is what we need to be as authors too, or whoever, like illustrators or whatever.
Illustrator, everything.
Like, we just need to feel so whole and recognize that the note that we put out there, it's not going to resonate with everybody. It's not meant to. You don't need to be for everybody, because then you're for nobody. Like that sucks. That is the blandest, most boring crap. You want to be for your people. And if you can find a way to do that while also harnessing like the broader energetics of like money mindset and rest and masculine and feminine energy, like it doesn't need to be something where you have to feel like you're going online and just to fit in, you're going to say how hard it is. I'm not saying that this business is not hard. Of course it is. I'm saying it does not need to be as hard.
No, and you don't need to
so many times all the time. Exactly, like so many, or in the right context. Because again, every tweet you put out there is a possible first impression. I'll be damned if my first impression is me bitching about my job where I'm really fortunate to have this job, right? And we all need the chance to vent. Of course, like you and I could vent for an hour, like we probably will, but like it is not about, it is about building your career and setting yourself the tone. You need to teach people how to treat you. And when it comes to this community, one of the things that really got under my skin was that idea that disempowerment was just the norm. Like, oh, well, we're always waiting. We're always, there's nothing we can do. Oh, well, my publisher didn't tap me to be the lead title. So therefore, oh, the world. And I'm like, no, you have every tool that a creative entrepreneur has. Every single tool, if not more. And it's about finding the way to do it without putting pressure on yourself. because you recognize, and like, this is the hardest thing that I had to get my healing in my head around. If you're watching this and you're somebody who, let's say you've got a lot of accomplishments under your belt, and like, I know you do, for example, like you've got tons of stuff to your name, Stephanie. And I was in the place where I would get the thing that like, all right, next book deal is done. Next thing is published. Next achievement is here. And then immediately I would be like, okay, next, better move that goalpost. What's next? What's next? I never internalized any wins. And that is because of a self-worth wound.
Absolutely.
It is the idea that we can fill what we're missing. And it always stems from childhood. It's always some random thing that happened from childhood that you internalized. And in my case, I was like a gifted kid. And I talk about smart girl syndrome a lot in EAA, which is like, you can intuit what it is. It's the girls, it's typically girls who are very, very smart and gifted. And it's just kind of normal that they're so smart and gifted. So nobody ever really gives them any validation that they're doing the right thing. So they learn that, okay, my worth is found in the things that I make, or the tests that I get right. Or, you know, I know a lot of like doctors who have this kind of particular thing where like your worth is in how well you perform on this task, this surgery, this job, this book. And I was very much that person. And I went years feeling like I have all these amazing accomplishments. I've got, you know, I was making multi-six figures in my business. I was publishing every genre that I wanted to publish. Like I'm tapped in enough to my intuition that I was able to do like all these different categories of books, but I was left feeling like why isn't it taking? Why isn't it hitting me? Why do I still feel like I'm not enough?
You know, it's interesting because I was saying to my husband the other night, we were at a wedding, you know, we were drinking, and I was like, oh my God, I failed at every single thing I've ever done. And he was like, but what are you talking about? You've done all these things. But it's that, and maybe it's because I started acting when I was like, you know, 5, that in my head, it's like, but I've never been famous. And
exactly. I'm not Oprah.
I'm not Oprah.
I'm a failure.
You know, I'm not Julia Roberts. So therefore I'm not Drew Barrymore. I'm not Reese Witherspoon. I never made it to that level. And I think what happens is you start well, at least with me, it's like I started belittling the accomplishments.
Yeah.
And it's
me too.
Like, oh yeah, I have. Yeah, I worked for Disney for almost 20 years. That's something that not a lot of people can say. And
you have a hugely successful career, and you've built every part of it.
I've always been a creative, and I've always survived. But it's that, you know, like my stepfather, someday you'll make it. And it's like, well, I have made it because I make a living and I'm doing what I love. And, you know, just because I'm not famous, but I think also sometimes when I've applied to speak at things, I'm even in the children's book world where I've been told, but you're not a big enough name. And I'm like, but I worked for Disney. I trained some of these authors that you guys have up there. You know, like I won't name names, but there's quite a few picture book authors that I trained at Disney and DreamWorks. And I'm like, but I've illustrated 23 picture books. And
you should name names though. That should be on your website. That is the self-sabotage.
Right. Yeah. But you know, it's, but not for the thing that now they're known for. But you know, it's amazing because then when you hear from the top, you're nothing. It becomes like this struggle where you start listening and you start believing it. Even
so here's the thing about judgment when it comes from the outside, right? Yeah. If it is something that we know deep down to be untrue, it will not hit us. Yeah. Like if somebody says to me like, oh God, I don't even know, like you're too tall, right? Like I'm not, like I'm above average height, but I'm just not. Like the example I like to think is like my husband, he's 6'7". If somebody said to him, oh, you're so short, you're just nothing, he would be like, okay, like it wouldn't even hit him. And in the same way, the things that actually we internalize that are external judgments, that is really just self-judgment.
Yeah. Or so we're judging
you
ourselves.
Wouldn't, So somebody's saying to you like, oh, well, you're not big enough. That wouldn't hit you if you didn't judge yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because everything has been about fame. And because, you know, again, I started as an actress. And so with art, I didn't put as much pressure because it was like, yeah, whatever, I can draw. So I'll go work for Disney. Really arrogantly, not even realizing how hard.
No, but that was awesome though. You know? Like that energy let you do that without having a lot of self-sabotaging blocks. And like you said, until you hit points where you're like, oh God. And then it was, you know.
And then it did. Yeah. And it's funny because now when I coach people, that's what I say. I was coaching this author the other day, brand new writer. Her query was one of the best query letters I have literally ever seen. And I've been coaching queries for 14 years. But she was like, and I'm not a professional and I don't have an MFA. And I'm like, well, that's why it's good, because you don't know better. And you're just trying to tell us what the story is, which is why it's working. So I keep telling her, like, believe in yourself. And, you know, what you're writing is, I think it's good. She sent me her first 10 pages. They're not perfect. They're really
They don't
strong.
need to be.
They're really strong. I'm like, you're ready. Stop listening. Like, stop posting on social media.
Yes, stop trying to build the career and sell the thing. Yeah.
Well, and also stop listening. Like, she posts like, I have no experience. And then people dogpile her because they think they're supposed to.
Yes.
And I'm like, girl, get out of this.
One of my biggest pet peeves is how if in like a Twitter bio, people will be like, aspiring writer. I'm like, no. You set the tone. Yes. Are you a writer? Are you writing? Do you write at all? Like, do you write a book? Like right now, are you working on a book? You're a writer.
Exactly.
Like you don't need to have and that's the thing. Like, you can have all the awards under your belt. If you don't clear that wound, you will never feel like a writer.
No.
Or any, whatever it is that you want to be. You have to crown yourself. You have to dub yourself. And it's not about being conceited. It's not about saying, oh, I have nothing more. I have so much more to learn. So much more to learn. But I still know what I can do. And I still know how I can make change. And if you're a writer or an illustrator, that is your way of making change.
It is.
So, and that's enough. Like, you don't need to be Oprah to change the world. You don't need to be. And the funny thing is, the more you embody your own energy and authority, that's why I have like a whole workshop. It's called Authority and Visibility.
I love it.
Because it's not just about being visible, like, look, here I am. It's about owning who you are and recognizing that that is really powerful. Like, it's not just, you know, the stuff that makes you, it's like your message that you have to give to the world, because everybody has a message. There's not a single person out there who's making anything for the planet that doesn't have something that they believe in, that they're for.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
That is where the power is. Like, you don't need to have a PhD in writing or whatever the hell it is. Like, you don't need those things. This is not brain surgery. I want my brain surgeon to go to school for a long, 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 long time.
Exactly.
If I ever need a brain, like, that is what I want. Like, you want somebody with gray hair who is doing that surgery.
Yes.
But when it comes to the creative fields,
doesn't matter.
There's no such thing. There is no such thing as an imposter.
And I think who you are is, I might have posted it for a plan that came out today, or it might have been, because sometimes I do a few in advance, but I was talking about like your superpower. Everybody has a superpower. And I honestly think mine, I talk too much, right? I've been hearing this since I came out. You talk too much. My mom used to sing me that song from the 50s or the 60s, you know, like my whole life I've been told this. I can be in a room and not even speak, and people think I'm talking. I'm just loud. But I'm like, that is my superpower. I can talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime, anything. Like, it's something that
it is a superpower. That is a huge superpower.
And so I tell people, whatever you are probably the most self-conscious about is your superpower, and you don't even realize it. Everybody has it in them. You don't.
I know my superpower too. And it is, you're right. It is something that I used to have a really, really hard time accepting about myself. For me, and I had a professor in university, it is the blending of all the things that seem to be unrelated. That is my superpower. And the way my professor described it was, so I was getting my MSc in zoology, love animals, love science, but I'm also somebody who, again, like, how about shamanic studies? How about spiritual? Because to me, I can see all these patterns that exist. And I was saying to him, like, look, I feel like I'm all over the map here. There's no place that I fit. I don't know what I want to do. And he said, listen, he's like, I train a lot of scientists, and like, they are meant to be where they are. He's like, some people are meant to occupy the valleys of this world, which are like very defined fields. You are a research biologist. You are an author. You are a poet. You are a painter. You are a biochemist. Like, that is their job, to be in those valleys. He said, your job, though, is to stand on the mountaintops and see all of the mountains and valleys and then connect them for everybody. So we said, Jess, you are not all over the map. You are the map.
You are the map.
Case, you are the map. But again, that was I was in my 30s, like, really, really, truly, genuinely stressed about like, oh, but I don't have like my one thing. And it felt like it was a hindrance. And then I was like, wait a minute. I'm a highly trained academic scientist. I'm a creative. I'm a graphic novelist. I'm a painter. I'm a speaker. I'm a coach. And I actually saw those things. I saw that as a bad thing. But then when you make that flip of like, wait a second, like, what other people can do, I cannot pick one thing. But my
Yeah.
one thing is to be able to see all these things and put them together in some way that's new, that helps people feel empowered.
Yeah,
Or that
I mean,
helps people feel connected.
it's probably why why I've always kind of been drawn to you, and because I'm the same way. And I
Yeah.
never thought it was different until people started telling me, well, you've had 10,000 careers. I'm like,
Yep.
have I? It's all been creative, like I worked in the film industry.
Well, and that's
as an
just
actor.
it. You've
me,
got
it's
the
one-
underlying blood of creativity.
Yeah, it's one thing.
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
I've done to me is one career, but people on the outside are like, oh, you were a
I
dancer
know.
too? I'm like, well, how are you on stage if you're not dancing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh,
Yeah.
you were a singer too? No, but I had to sing for this part, or I was
And the
drawing
same
it,
way.
so, oh, you wrote stories too? I'm like, well, I had to be a storyboard artist, so I had to think about stories, and it's people on the outside don't see it. And I think for me, it was always normal. And I never had really a doubt about it until I started letting people in, questioning. And you're right. It comes from some wounds where I was like, I'm not good enough, because also I'm the only one in my family. Well, my mom was a fine artist, so still don't understand why we never related, but
there's time. Sort all that out.
They're different, they're all different than me. And I stood out like a sore thumb. Because I was the creative one and the loud one and the extrovert and and they were just all who they are.
Doing
and I love
thing.
my family, but it's just, it's funny because, and I find that so many creatives go through this. This is why I love your course so much, even though I haven't taken it in full transparency.
That's all right.
Just like I have friends that, they're just raving about it. And I was emailing them when I emailed you last week, like, tell me more about it, because like, it's so intriguing. And I think it's amazing. And I think people will only benefit from it.
Yeah, it is I can definitely say it's one of those things where it will never be a waste to do this inner work. Because really at its heart, it's just healing work. It's my version of using science and spirit and strategy to heal, so that, again, wiping away that stuff so you can see who you really are. Once you have that sorted, everything else just gets loads easier. Yes. Like you do truly become, and I mean, I also open you up to like all the help around you that you can get if you need it. And I don't mean like in people necessarily, I just mean in like energy. Like you can find help wherever you need it. And there will never be any experience that you undergo that is related to your own self-healing that will not be worth it. Exactly. That's the thing. Like you could take 1 week of it and it would be worth it. Like I had somebody write in and say, like, money week alone, she's like, this week alone for me, this conversation, we do like a live Q&A every week. And she's like, this conversation alone for me was worth the price of admission for this course. Because again, like we're talking about ancestral, generational, familial bonds of like money and trauma and all these things. Like, though we think of money as like, oh, it's so tacky, but like money is how you make change, and in my mind, like the studies show the more women have money, the better the planet is. Literally, like the oceans are healthier when women have more money. There are less extinctions when women have more money. There's more equality and less poverty and more empowerment of women all over the globe and children if women have more money. So like stuff like that, like it's these taboo subjects that if you want to do the real work to make change, you have to do something different. And again, like it's not about, there's always a place for a craft course. There's always a place for like sitting down, butt in chair, do the thing, but if you're like, I always kind of cringe when I hear people say like, oh, well, the way to write a book is just to sit down, power through it and butt in chair. And I'm like, no. What about masculine and feminine energy? Like if you do enough of this inner work, like I've written books in 4 days and I know that's going to trigger people, but like it's available to everybody. You can, because it's about recognizing when you're so in tune with how you work and what your intuition needs, my intuition will tell me like, okay, now it's time. You've had your rest period, like you've gathered resources, you've researched whatever. Now it's time to move. Yeah. And I've done the experiments, again, scientist. I'm not just going to take it on blind faith. I've done these experiments with myself and with my clients and stuff. And it's like, it doesn't need to be painful all the time to be a creative. No, and we have, again, like what's the most famous thing that people think about artists, right? Starving artists.
Broke. Yeah. I hate that.
Broke artists, like, Oh my God.
I'm so
Like,
sick of that. Well, that's what, when I
enough.
tell people that I'm an artist and a writer, they're like, but what's your day job? And or I'll say like, oh, I coach writers now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, what do you do? What's your day job? And I'm like, art. And they're like, no, well, what's your real day job?
Yeah.
I'm like,
What's your real
writing.
job?
I
Yeah.
write too. I do work for hire stuff, or I'm script doctoring or whatever. And it's like, but what's your real day job? I'm like, okay, so those are my day jobs.
Yeah. I have many day jobs.
Day jobs because I'm a creative. And it's funny because I don't know, when I was 13, I saw Eddie Murphy on SNL and he was like 20 something. And he said he never had a fallback plan. And he was like, because if you have something to fall back on, you're going to fall back. And it was right then and there that I was like, I'm never going to have an actual fallback because
I'm the same way.
When it gets hard, and it was hard for 10 years. I had time where people thought I was doing really well, where it was like eating a baked potato every 2 days because I did not have work coming in.
Peanut butter and rocks. Those are the peanut butter and rocks years.
Right. And everybody, or my grill, I wrote a blog to my grilled cheese sandwich. It got like 40,000 views. I actually wasn't trying to be funny, but I'm so appreciative that I had cheese and bread. Like, I can eat for a week for like $7,
Get
and
some beans, you're good for a month.
Yeah, exactly. It was that kind of thing where it's like, and all those experiences, although I wouldn't want to go through them again, made me a better person. And they made me understand more about this business and how you can do it. And I always tell people, although I'm not like you, I don't know how to tell them to tap into it, but anybody can have a career as a creative. Can I guarantee you fame? No, but can I help you see how you can have a career as a creative? Absolutely.
That's just it. And it's often, we don't realize that we often set our goals based on the wounded parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
So ironically enough, like your goals, when you go through EAA, for example, or any major healing thing, but like that's the one that I'm thinking of. When you go through that, you might find that your goals do a bit of a shift and a sidestep, or you might come to me and be like, I really want to be big and known for blah. And then you might realize like, wait a minute, that was kind of my mother's trauma speaking through me, or like this thing for fame. Like there are people who legitimately their soul knows that they want, and they are meant for fame. They're meant to be leaders, and, they are meant to have that influence. They know that. And that's great. And I want to get them there. But there are also people who think that's what they want, but really it's because they didn't get the recognition when they were 5 for the art project.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but it just means that when you get there, you will bust your ass to get to fame. When you get there, your 5-year-old self will still be like, but my art project.
But exactly.
Right? Like you have to give yourself these things. And once you do, every path you take, it's easier. Like if you're shooting for fame, good on you. I'd love to be famous. Sure.
Yeah, me too.
But it has to be about the right mechanics behind it. Because if you're working on wounded, if you're kind of wounded and limping your way there out of this broken, wounded state, that's how you're going to be when you get there. I like to say, like, publishing is an island. If you don't bring it, you are not likely to find it there. If you're looking for self-worth, validation, like money, even that is a goal. Like you have to find your own way of feeling rich in any way you can, big or small. It doesn't mean like go off and gamble. I mean, like having a slightly more expensive cup of coffee in the morning because it makes you feel like a freaking queen. Like that stuff, right? Like
my husband laughs at me and I'm like,
difference.
This shit makes me feel good. I can have a 50-cent coffee at home, but I bought a $6 one. Absolutely. It's funny because since we are writers I'm sure Lisa Crone, but she has her book Wired for Story. And what you're talking about,
that's my favorite one. That's my favorite book. Yeah.
It is our misbeliefs. And when I'm trying to explain to my clients about your misbelief about your character, I'm like, what is your misbelief about yourself? And they always come up, well, I don't have it. And I'm like, okay, I have it.
Oh, you do.
I have it.
Come hang out with me for an hour. You absolutely do.
And because of this misbelief, I act this way. And because I act this way, all this stuff happens that otherwise wouldn't happen. And the way I react in the situation is because of my flaw. That's based on
we always say, like in craft classes, like there's the thing that the protagonist thinks they want, and there's the thing that they actually need. Yeah. And it's funny that as authors, like this is just part of our common vernacular and what we talk about, but we don't ever turn that lens on ourselves.
It should be. We're all characters in our own story.
That's all we are. And the stories, we understand like the importance of story, but the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves is the most important story that matters.
Yes.
And once you get clear on that, your work gets better. It's easier to make the actual work. You don't have any self-sabotage of sharing it or promoting it. And then you can actually build a career that you want, because all of a sudden you're just expressing and beaming out who you are. That's it. And like, I have made so much money doing this first round of Epic Authors. And it's not because I'm fantastic. It's because I allowed what I felt wanted to come through. What was needed right now. It happened to tag me, and I happened to be stopping from, being sick. I was there to hear that. But if I didn't do it, somebody else would have. It was meant to happen. And we all have something that is like kind of knocking on our door, and being able to have the discernment to be like, oh, this feels actually right and aligned for me right now. And I can do it in a way that's not going to overwhelm me, burn me out, bust my, like, how many times in my life have I been burned out? That was my only state of being for decades, like ever since school began.
Yeah, mine too.
Like I always got the great grades, and like I was smart, and that's great. That's fine. But moving into like university and getting a master's, like I only had one mode. It was just like, do the thing.
Oh, me too, all the time. Go. I admit I'm still there, and I'm
like
trying to break it. Yeah.
You totally can. And like, that is where, like I said, with the last kind of group of stuff we do, it's that third soul, which is the connected soul. It's the money stuff. It's how to build a long-term career so that you're not like, there's no point of being a creative if it's going to kill you.
Yeah.
And I mean that emotionally, of course, but also like your body wears down when you're in those states of hustle. Like I used to be about the hustle. I was somebody who was like, yeah, you just got to get her done and like head down, power through. And now I'm like, oh my God, like, what was I thinking? Like, yes, I had to go through those things because I had to come through them and see the wrongness of it all, probably so that I could teach it. Exactly. Like, that's really why I think I had, like having that wound myself will help me heal other people who have that wound. And I would not have been like that if I had grown up just, millions of dollars sitting around and I never learned how to hustle. Like, there is a time and place for hustle, but it's not meant to be a strategy for any more than, like, I would say a block of work. Like, you might have days where you want to sit down and have an hour of like, go, go, go. And then you sit back and like, let the world tell you what it wants to happen sometimes. Yeah. And that's one of the things that like, we don't think about that. We try to control the things we make. Whereas like every course you make and every book you write and every picture you paint or whatever, it has its own soul and its own destiny. And we can't direct that. We just need to do the things we do to become the vessel and get it out into the world and not get in our way ourselves to put it where it needs to be.
Well, that's like, what it is. It's getting in our own way. And it's funny because my parents had completely two different philosophies. Like my mom, she was, like work.
Mine too.
And she died with not much money in the bank, and she was penny pinching. I remember being a little kid wanting like M&Ms, and she didn't have a coupon. And I'm like, I'll give you 50 cents. I just want them, as a child, like first grade.
And you don't get it when you're a kid. Yeah.
And my dad, he was sort of more like how I am. I tend to be more like him, where it's like, live life to the fullest, spend money like you have it, enjoy everything. It's okay to work, but he kind of felt like work was a necessary evil. He would always say that to me. And I'm like, well, Dad, I'm not going to digging ditches as a job. Like, I work creative. Like, I love what I do. So I don't look at it like work. But he always still would tell me, slow down. You have too much of your mother, slow down. And I'm trying to find that balance, and I believe that I will, which is why I'm doing all this.
You're already on like, it is inevitable. You're on the healing journey.
And that's what I tell people too. I'm like, you can't spend 24 hours a day or 18 hours a day worried about everything and trying to control. You cannot control stuff either. So I'm glad that, yours aligns with that, because I'm like, my right.
Oh, forgot. Yeah. I was the poster child. Like I wrote 20 books in 5 years or something, like it. And I'm proud of every single one of them. My only regret, and not that I really believe in regrets, but like, what I'm saying here, I didn't allow myself a chance to really internalize a lot of it, because it was very much like I was still searching, like, where's the thing though that's going to make me feel whole, or like I'm validated or whatever. And like, once you realize, okay, I know that is because of XYZ when I was like 10 or 7 or whatever, right? Like we all have many of these experiences that we have to go back and heal. And once you do that, when I was able to, I had a day where like I looked at all the stuff that I created. Even I made a list of like I won a coloring contest when I was like, I don't know, 8. And I made a whole list of all these things. And I was just overcome with this feeling of like, I'm amazing.
Yeah.
And and I know, again, really triggering thought, but it's not from a place of conceit, or it's not from a place of needing anybody else to feel that. It's recognizing that it is healthy and it is whole to be able to see the entirety of who you are creatively, and recognize that, yes, there's power there. It is meant to be there. And I was given these gifts so that I could do something with them.
Absolutely.
You know, and the journey might have yes, it is really hard to query. It sucks. It is really hard to get, copy edits back, and you're at the very end and they're like, we have to change everything. Like, I've been there.
Yep,
but it doesn't need to be, we don't need to internalize it on the soul level of like, oh, this therefore means that I am not worthy, or I suck.
I'm so sick of hearing that. I must suck. I got a book full, like there's red lines over everything. And I'm like,
oh my God, that's their job.
Yeah.
Like they literally get paid decent money to make your stuff look bad.
Well, even as a coach,
that's their job.
I'll go through it and I'll be like, okay, this is really good, but here's how we can make it better. And then they open the thing and they're like, it's all track changes. I'm like, I'm just trying to show you how it can be stronger. It's great. What you did was good, but let's get it better. And it's a hard mindset, because I think people are so ingrained to think that
they are. And they think it's that fine line between letting yourself internalize the success, but also recognizing that the thing that you create is not you.
Yeah.
And that's where I diverge from a lot of people, because some people, I do believe that we infuse or imbue a part of our essence in what we make, of course, but I do not think it's like a part of me out there. And that means that I'm by definition not whole. I'm less whole every time I make something.
Yeah.
If that's my definition.
Yeah.
And then I'm letting people dictate like, oh, well, this book it didn't earn out, or it did, and therefore it's a better part of your soul. Like it's that fine line between recognizing you can put your heart into something, but when you're done, put your heart back into yourself and let the thing exist on its own. It's kind of like a kid going off to school.
Exactly.
Like you can't control it. You can guide, you can do your best, you can set it up for success. And then from your own situated wholeness, try to get people to look at the thing or to engage with the thing, whatever it is. But it cannot be, if this thing doesn't work, it cannot be this doesn't work.
Exactly.
And that's what I see in so many, like, oh, well, I'm a failure. It didn't. Like, no, you kidding me? Like, you had zero control over like I had 5 books come out in the pandemic.
Oh my God.
5 books. And they were all like really, really great all-star books, like career-changing books. But you know what? It's not worth, like, what am I going to lose sleep over that?
You
no.
can't change it. Yeah.
Like, I cannot change it. It doesn't mean that I can't continue to build my audience, my brand, build what I'm about, build those communities, like all of that stuff. And that's where I put my attention. And I later find out that one of my first graphic novels, we sold 140,000 copies in a book fair, because people were sitting at home bored with their kids.
Yes.
We need, magic can happen. Magic can happen
when you're not, like when you're not focused on it. And I wanted to add too, I have, and I'm not name dropping or anything, but I have a lot of famous friends because I've been acting my whole life.
I love that. I want you to tell me all of your famous friends, because I'm obsessed.
Well, there could be a list. But no, like so many of them, when they reach the higher levels, like A-list actors or whatever, they also feel that soul crushing, I'm nothing. And sometimes it's worse because everything is phony. I had a guy I went out with actually for a while, and in the 90s, he got very big, very fast. And he got,
I have to know who this is.
I'll tell you off camera. I think a lot of some people do know, but I have to be careful about it. But
yeah, of course.
It's there's always a story with the actors of the world. But and he got in a car accident, and people did not ask him if he was okay. People wanted his autograph. And I remember he called me, and I went down and I helped him out, and he was like, you don't understand. I know you wanted this, because I met him at my agent's office at the time. He's like, but this life sucks. Even though he didn't walk away from it, by the way. But he's like, it's so hard because I don't know who my friends are. I don't know who likes me, the money. And it was interesting. because at that I think was the time where it really clicked to me. Like I'd been going, I want to be a famous actress. And then I was like, no, I just want to be on soaps so I can have money. I love soaps.
Yeah. Live it without the,
yeah, I can have money without being super famous. Because when I would hang out with my soap, because I did a lot of extra work on soaps, when I would hang out with my soap star actresses, people would come right up and go, oh, are you so-and-so from Days of Our Lives? And, you know, my friend Jem would be like, everybody says that. And she would just lie because she wanted her piece.
Yeah.
And people just walked away. And it's funny because I really didn't want that, the fame that comes with acting. I love acting. I would do it for nothing because it's so much fun. I thought I wanted the fame. I didn't. I wanted to make my mom.
But we're kind of told that that's what you should want.
Yeah. And I wanted my mom to be like, look, I'm not a loser. I'm good at this.
Yeah.
So, you know, going into animation was, in a way, it was me healing myself and going into some other aspect of the film industry.
Yeah, in a way that worked for you, that let you participate
at the time. And even, you know, even that. So it's like, and coaching and everything I do, I love doing. And the fame thing, it's not real. I always tell people, and then
no, it's not.
And again,
it is
hard to see.
You can get the influence is fantastic, but if you are not stable in and of yourself, it will destroy you.
It will.
Like,
and
it
even
will
kids
just, and it's the same thing. It's not.
Get up there.
It's not the same level. Like I recognize it's not like Tom Cruise or Oprah, but we do have like very defined tiers. I mean, there's a word for it. Like there's mid-list or there's bestseller, right? And like even stuff like that, people will feel less than. You can have a book, be collecting royalties and be like, oh, but I'm not. Like I've played that game. I've played that game. And I realized like it is not a good use of my time. Nope. I'm very likely may reach certain stages that I'm not at now, or drop down. Like who knows where my career is going, because I'm finally at the place where I'm open enough to let it kind of drive itself for a while.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm able to now say like, you know, I think I'm really digging coaching and helping people emotionally get back down to who they are, and like that, bringing in science and magic, and like none of these things, if you knew me as a kid, none of these things would surprise you. That's the funny thing. Like it is not a surprise to anybody that I grew up to be an author or an artist or a zoologist or a coach, right? And that's how you know you're on the right track.
Except for the zoology thing.
Well, that's okay. I'm a bit of an oddball there. That's okay. But again, the funny thing is, like I do a lot of activations in all of my work, but specifically in Epic Authors Academy. And I'm really excited to do more for people who I'm pivoting now to expand a bit for all creative entrepreneurs. That's what I was mentioning.
That's what you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm planning on doing a program like this for just creative entrepreneurs in general, because there's a lot of overlap, but we have more things to say for other entrepreneurs. Yeah. But the funny thing is I use a lot of activations in my programs, which is kind of once we've done the conscious and subconscious work of like healing some stuff, I take you through sort of a journey meditation where animals are often a part of that. So the end of Epic Authors Academy, I have what I call the Raven activation, and I'm not going to spoil anything. I don't even mention it to my authors until they get something on the last day and they're like, what's this? And then they start crying. But the funny thing is, I realize now, like, a lot of the shamanic elements to what I do, which is really like journey work, activations, all that subconscious, juicy imagery stuff, that's all really just shamanic work. Mm-hmm. The fact that I have the zoology background to put into, right? And it's something that even in the past year, I've been like, wait a second, like I have this element to me that this whole time I thought it was like, oh, just kind of a compartmentalized, and I love animals and science and blah. And now I'm like, no. And I even did, like, this is going to sound super woo, but I did
California.
Yeah. Like it's fine. Yeah. I did a meditation where I was chatting with one of my own like guides, whatever you want to call it, teacher guide, you know, whatever. And they were telling me like, so I said like, oh, well, you know, I want to use animals in these activations. And like, I want to make sure that I'm doing it in a way that kind of cuts through right to people's souls and whatever. And his response was like, well, why do you think we've been putting animals in front of your face for your whole life? Like, why do you think we gave you this love of animals, kid? Like, it wasn't just because they're cool. And I was like, and again, I know how woo that sounds. Subconsciously, who knows what it was, but it was one of those like, oh, there it is. And like, I have this whole repository of knowledge. And again, animals represent something to us.
Yes.
You know, because again, like, and it doesn't matter if you live in a city, if you live in a high rise, if you live in the farm, doesn't matter. We have in our blood, every single one of us ancestrally, connections to the natural world.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been so rewarding, I guess, this is the first time in my life where I feel like I'm able to take all these different mountains and valleys and put them together into something to help people. Yeah. And like, I think that's why it has been so powerful for me, just to watch people, like you said, like all these transformations that are happening. Yeah. And like there's big huge stuff, and then there's little stuff, like some people, I'll notice they'll change their Twitter bio to just be like really authoritative, or like, oh, I'm officially using my author Instagram. Like one of my authors did that this week. Like, I'm finally pulling out the author Instagram because it's time. And I'm like, yes. And nobody knows what it's about, but I'm like, I know why you're doing that. Yeah. Because you're starting to believe it. You're believing it now. Yeah. So it's more rewarding than I expected to do this. And maybe you felt the same way. I don't know, like, because you started as creative, wholehearted creative, and then you got into coaching, I believe, right?
Yeah, I got into coaching actually in 2008 because for two reasons. One, because I was broke and I needed income, and I was spending all this time on MySpace and Facebook giving advice. Yes. And then someone said, you should charge for this. And I'm like, okay, now I am. If you want to know what courses to take, send me an email and we'll do a consultation. And that's how it started. But it was because I had all this knowledge, because I spent all these years taking these courses, and it grew from a need, and then it turned into a love. Yeah. And you just, and it's been the same with me. And like, I love helping. It really surprised me. I really do. Me too. And I love that it's not just a case of like, oh, buy this thing and, you know, you'll look better. Like, you know what, true great coaching and success coaching and all that, like it's those transformations. Mm-hmm. And it's real, like, we don't do anything for people. We show them how to find the thing in themselves. And like, we don't heal, like, I don't heal people. Yeah. They heal themselves. I just give them like, use these 3 things, think about this, do this, and you will self-heal. And I think once you give people that ability, you can do it forever. Like you can literally change somebody forever in the trajectory of their career. And having I have people email me like almost every day being like, you know, I used to be like so anxiety ridden. Like, writers are a really anxious bunch. Oh my God. And like, especially we get it naturally. Writers. Yeah. Like it's so funny. But like, and I've been there, like I myself, like I've had PTSD, I've had depression, anxiety. Like I'm not saying like, oh, that's weird happening over there. Like I get it, but it doesn't need to be about the job. Put it that way. You know what, they put picture, because I wrote picture books. I did work for hire for a long time to see if I liked writing them. I love drawing them, but writing them I think is so hard. I'd rather write a 100,000 word novel any day. Because you have more room, you've got more yarn. I have more yarn, I can do it easily. But I noticed the picture book, and I shouldn't say Kidlet, but picture book specifically, it's like that pressure of it has to be perfect because I'm teaching and the message, and I'm like, you need to like step back because you're putting all this pressure on yourself. And it's squashing it. And then it is competitive. I found Kidlet to be really Kidlet's very competitive. And it's very, the problems that we see in like society in general, like patriarchy, like discrimination, all those things, they are very much reflected in Kidlet. I mean, I think they are reflected everywhere, but Kidlet is no exception. Exactly. And I joke about it because I'm like, I came from animation, which I could tell stories, and then it's like, then Kidlet, and it's like, it's amazing when you're working for children, but still what goes on under it's because it's still life and it's still business, and we're still human, and we're all just, in a way, we're all kids just trying to be seen or heard. Yes, whatever. That's it. We're kids trying to solve those kid problems. That's in an adult body or whatever. In an adult body, and on social media. When you give yourself the freedom, live for everybody to see. When you give yourself the freedom to heal that stuff yourself, that means that the stuff you actually decide to authentically put out there is going to be that much more powerful. Exactly. Like, if you know who you are, your books will be better. If you trust 100%. Your ability to make those books, your time spent making the book will feel better. Absolutely. Or, promoting the thing. It doesn't need to be, there's no enemy. Exactly. We deal with, one last thing, we deal with
you know, as fiction authors, like we always talk about protagonist, antagonist, the villain, the hero's journey. And I sometimes think that we invent villains in our own subconscious in our lives.
Absolutely.
Because we feel like our success won't be worthy if we don't kill ourselves to get there.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I actually coach my writers that are doing more quiet, or they think they're quieter books. I'm like, who's the villain? Well, there is no villain. And I'm like, okay, but then it's herself. Then it's what she's doing to herself.
There's always something.
Is the antagonist. It's the behavior that's the antagonist. It's what she's her master of her own disaster, which is her own problem. You don't always have to have a villain. People get stuck on that too. Do I need to have the bitchy ex-girlfriend who's gonna, especially if you're writing Hallmark type movies? I'm like, she doesn't need to be in there. Your character can do it to herself.
I love that you do that, by the way, because I'm a huge fan of that whole world.
Trying to do it more, because it
just seems so, I don't know, it just seems really awesome.
I wrote chick lit, and I think hopefully I actually like that term, because it's very clear what it is. The fun romantic comedies. I did that in the 2000s. I sold 3 of them. I'm not rich from it, but it was a great experience. And then I don't know if I was having a bad day. I think I was coming off something pretty dark. So I started into this downward into teen angst. And I spent a few years writing these really hard to write. One of them's a suicide novel, and I am in love with this book. Someday it'll come out. And I struggled. And then some pretty bad things. I was online bullied in 2018, and it was bad. And then I sort of shifted out. And in 2016, with the United States elections, let's say it didn't go the way I wanted it to. So I started really watching those movies again and reading those books, because I needed an escape. I didn't want to read anything dystopian. I didn't want to read The Handmaid's Tale. Nothing against it. They're
like a self, like they're like some sort of a healing. They're
healing because they're just
world you can step into. Yeah.
So then I was like, I'm going back and I'm writing romantic comedies. I'm good at it.
I love that.
My books don't need to mean anything. They're just fun. And that's where I kind of went back into the space, and people are like, but you're not doing kidlit anymore. And it's like, no, I have a teen romantic comedy. Like I'm not out of it. I'm like,
you might one day.
Things.
You can. That's just it. You can contain multitudes, and that's another big question that comes up a lot when we're talking like outer soul, like marketing stuff. One of the big things that always comes up is like, well, I don't want to confuse people with like my brand, and I like this, but also this. And I'm like, no, like that. If you find yourself like, and that's a good rule of thumb, if you find yourself not putting out something authentic because you're worried about confusing people, stop. Like you need to put that stuff out. Like, come to me, we'll help you sort it out in a way that feels like coherent, but you do not need to hide any part of yourself that truly lights you up.
And that's
because
bad
the thing
advice.
Is like, like when you put it out there, what happens? You're going to magnetize the people who have that as well.
But that's what I'm saying. Like what you're saying is good advice, but the bad advice I hear all the time from some agents and coaches and stuff is like, you have to only do this and don't do this. And I'm like, no, because like I could put out a suicide book and a romantic comedy and it would still be me. And because I have a very,
you are the brand.
I am the brand.
You are the brand.
My voice. It's my voice in the suicide book. It's my voice in this romantic comedy.
And you can have different voices for different categories.
Absolutely.
You know, I've written, like I said, pretty much everything. And they're not lost.
No, they're not.
Because I have my core pillars of what I'm about, you know, curiosity, creativity, empowering women, diversity, like even animal books, like that's diversity. Just because it's biodiversity doesn't mean it's not diversity. You know, so helping kids understand that like this world contains so much. And if there's room for a blobfish on this planet, there's room for you too, even if you feel weird.
Exactly.
You know?
That's why it's so great.
People intuitively get that because I go out of my way to present that. It's not an accident.
It's not fake and it's not
right. Yeah. It's very real. And it means that you can meet me on the street and like, I might swear more in real life, just that's a swear bear, but like, I try not to swear online, but like
swear bear,
I am a total swear bear, but you will not ever be thinking like, wow, she seems really weird compared to what she's into. Like, no, doesn't need to be like that. It doesn't need to be a question of like, should I post this? Should I not? Like,
no,
waste of time.
I feel bags were at like 90 minutes. I hope people will
that's all right.
watch the whole thing or listen to it. But I'm the same way. I'm so authentic. Somebody came up to me at a conference who I'd never met. She's like, oh, I follow you on social media. And she's like, you're so real. I love that about you. But because we were in a writing conference and I thought the volume was off and I was cursing like an Irish sailor, like my husband and everybody, including the agents heard it. And I became really good friends with these two agents that were running it. And it was hilarious because it was just like, that's who I am. And I was frustrated and I curse. I'm Irish, Italian, grew up in New England, New York.
They say the more educated you are, the more you swear. I've seen studies on that. So I was like,
I have seen that. Yeah.
I am highly educated. So I'm entitled.
I'm entitled. And I am who I am. And people either like that or they don't. If they want somebody who's pristine and perfect all the time, then they're not my people. And that's fine. They can go to somebody else, because
there will always be people that will be for what you're for.
Exactly. Always. That's the way it is. So tell me really fast, and I am going to put all the links in. If you're listening to the podcast, they will be in the show notes. If you're watching the YouTube video, they will be in the description with all Jess's links. When is sign up closes on the 2nd? Is that right?
Sign up closes on Saturday.
Saturday the 2nd.
Saturday the 2nd at like midnight. Or like 11:55 or whatever.
Ontario time? No.
Or Eastern time. Yes, that's a good point. Eastern time. So at like 11:50 something. Yeah, it'll be 9 p.m. your time, Pacific. So if people want
plans too, right?
Oh yes, payment plans. I believe that, there's 6-month payment plan, 2-month payment plan, and then the whole shebang. You get access to, with this now, because of how well it went the first time, it is a lifetime access.
I love that.
You get access. People have said, are you going to run it again? I would love to run it again, but this is the only time I can commit to doing it with the live calls every week. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're on the fence, like I would just do it now, because you get lifetime access. And if I do it again, this is the cheapest you're going to get it, because I have a very good money mindset. I increase prices when things get better. So
me too.
Right? Like you have to do that. Yeah. So that is at Jess Keating. Yeah, that is at jesskeating.com/academy. And if you want to find me anywhere online, best places to go, if you go to jesskeating.com/epic email, you'll see a tab at the top that says this.
I'll put it all in there so they can
there you go. Epic email is my weekly resources that I send out. Like, I don't call it a newsletter, because newsletters tend to be very like, here's the thing I have. And I'm like, it's not really about my books. It's more guidance for creatives and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, no, I get your non.
Yeah, like it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
I am on Facebook. Just friend me on my personal page. Just look for my face. That's me. I don't use the business page. I just squat there so people don't take it. And I am on Instagram at Jess Keating Books. And I am on Twitter at Jess_Keating.
Great.
So any and all of those places.
I will get all of it and put it all in. That way it's easier, because then people can
awesome. Yeah.
Although I never, when I listen to podcasts and they're like, it's in the show notes. I'm like, I never go to the show notes.
Yeah. Well, people might be listening.
I use the show notes, but then if you go on your desktop, it's easy, or even on your phone, you can just save it. It's easier way to find it. So God, this has been so amazing. I mean, I think you're amazing. I could talk to you all friggin' day.
I know, me too. I think you're awesome. We can do this again.
I'm so happy that you agreed to do this with me, because I'm so excited about your course, and maybe I should sign up now, even though I'm not doing kid learning.
do the entrepreneur one. It'll give me incentive to get it out there.
Okay, there you go. Then you have to do it. But no, I mean, like I said, I know people in it. I'm being totally real about it. I am also somebody, I think anybody who knows me for any length of time, I don't promote or say anything good about something unless I believe it. I'm really,
me too.
It's just,
I'm always afraid of it coming back to bite me.
Yeah, there's no way. So even if, it's somebody that I'm friends with or I know, and they're like, oh, I have this great product or whatever, can you promote it? And it's like, if I don't believe in it, I just won't do it. So I wouldn't have had you on here if I didn't fully believe it, because trust me, I have enough stuff to talk about on my own. Like I don't need to, I'm so excited for you. I'm going to stop the recording now, but stay on though, so I can chat with you for 1 minute.
Yeah, you got it.
That was Jess. I'm super happy that you were here to see her. She's so amazing, isn't she? She's so inspiring. Oh my God. I can't wait for you to sign up for her course. It closes this Saturday, October 2nd. So make sure to go down to the description and click on the links to find out more and how you can sign up, and follow her on social media. And as always, thank you for watching me. I hope you hit that subscribe button, and please follow me on social media. My links are there too. I'm doing a little bit of rebranding and changing things up so I can best serve you. But I will be back with more videos, and also follow me on my podcast and Instagram and TikTok, where I will be giving content to help writers like you move forward in your career and write amazing stories. Have an amazing rest of your week.